everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video and Blind Woman Reviews. I am Never Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, and I'm super excited. So Queen of Shadows is another really good book. But let's begin. But before we do, know that there will be spoilers. Also, I mentioned this before, and I mentioned this in every video because it's actually really important that you do. Read The Assassin's Blade before this book. This is when things kind of start making sense a little. So definitely read it beforehand. And yes, so read that, and also what was the other thing? Oh yes, if you have not yet, I will be linking a Throne of Glass playlist, so check out my reviews for each individual book. Some are long, some are short. They're honestly getting longer as the books progress, just because there's always so much to talk about in my for me, because I just have so much praise and so much of everything. There will most likely be spoilers throughout the video, so for previous books and for this one, so keep an eye on that. But if anything, watch my previous reviews before checking this one out. Without further ado, let's begin. Everyone Selena Sardathian loves has been taken from her, but she's at last returned to the Empire for vengeance, to rescue her once glorious kingdom and to confront the shadows of her past. She has embraced her identity as Aelin Galathinius, Queen of Terrasen, but before she can reclaim her throne, she must fight. She will fight for her cousin, a warrior prepared to die for her. She will fight for her friend, a young man trapped in an unspeakable prison, and she will fight for her people, enslaved to a brutal king and awaiting their lost queen's triumphant return. The fourth volume in the New York Times best-selling series continues Selena's epic journey and builds to a passionate, agonizing crescendo that might just shatter her world. These descriptions are getting so dramatic, and I love them. I love the descriptions of dramatics here. Like, there is something about there is something about dramatic descriptions that is so likable. Queen of Shadows, I will be honest, the first time I read Queen of Shadows, I had a bit of an issue, and I remember rating it 3 stars and being really disappointed. I was 19 when I read 18 or 19. I had some issues with Queen of Shadows. Mainly, they revolved a lot around the territorial stuff, but between Dorian and Rowan. But I also had an issue with the way she faced everything in Queen of Shadows, and the way she pushed everything back and not wanting to the way that she ended up facing her whole identity. But now I gave it 5 stars. Now I don't have too much of an issue. Now I feel okay with everything I had an issue with before, because I feel like they were minor things in the book, and I think I just was really picky as a reader, and I still am, but they were minor things for me, and I can now say I appreciate everything I had an issue with. But it's very unlikely for me now. Like, for me, it makes sense that I would give this 5 stars now, but now the stories that were loosely connected in Heir of Fire have finally connected. Now we know that the king wants this host to, I guess you can say, claim the rest of the like I don't know how to describe what he wants to do, but basically he has a lot of things going on. You know what I mean? And we can now say that all of these stories are connected, because now Aelin wants to return magic, and the witches are now in the skies like they wanted to, because in Era Fire they wanted them to mount these wyverns. And what's interesting is Minon got this really interesting wyvern, Abraxos. And by the way, I love Abraxos. He is so awesome. He's just cool. Like, Abraxos is so sweet. So sweet. And he loves her so much too. So Abraxos is an adorable one. But they're all with wyverns, and they basically mount and they fight in the king's army. And but Manon commands all of the um he's the one that commands the witches now. But she finds that there are certain things that aren't going right, because he wants these witches to Parrington wants these witches to command not no, I'm sorry, to breed his to breed these like monsters. They and he wants them to do that. And there are witches that volunteer, as well as some that are just sent. But she's asking questions, but she's not fully doing these things. And that brings a conflict between her and Asterin, who was her second but was demoted to third, because she was questioning certain things, a lot of things. And we find out that Asterin was technically a victim of Minon's grandmother, and she ended up because she originally had a they call it a witchling, and basically it's like a child, usually about a witch. But she ended up losing her witchling, and the witchling was burned, and she was not even allowed to hold or even grieve for her child. And she was branded unclean by the grandmother in her stomach, and eventually just uh left out. Like, she was literally eventually kicked out. And then eventually, though, she returned with 3 Kraken hearts and just ended up joining the 13 again, and just didn't care about anything because of everything. But she now is completely against the she is completely against everything that's happening with the witches, and she is questioning Manon because if because when she because she is allowing these witches to be used in who knows what manner, while Manon, although Manon is questioning, she isn't acting. Another thing that I like about this is that we meet a lead who turns out to be she is mentioned in Era of Fire, but basically she is Marion's daughter. Marion is the late her mother's best friend, basically, and she ended up also becoming, her lady in wait, her favorite lady in waiting, and all a bunch of stuff. But they became really good friends, and and Elide is Marion's daughter, and she asked Aelin to tell Marion's daughter, that, like, tell her that I love her, you know what I mean? Like, those were her last words. And basically, Elide was taken is with her uncle, whose name I completely forgot because he is a worthless jerk. And he kept her captive in a tower, and now she is being a servant in where they are in Morath. And she is basically trying her way to best to get out. But she has also been like, one of her legs is ruined, and she can barely walk with it. So she has like a chain now, because he also chained that leg so that she couldn't run away. And the ankle was never that the ankle of that leg was never really was never even healed, so that she wouldn't run away. So now she's been dealing with her ankle for like 10 years. And I like Elite. She's sweet and she's interesting. Definitely very lovely. Kind of it kind of like I can see how she has worked around her current issue, and I'm like, yeah, I understand that. Like, I understand what it means to work around something that you have, and stuff like that. So I can say I understand what that feels like, because I have to usually problem solve a lot. But she ends up becoming like, Manon ends up protecting her, because she is, it turns out that she is, her bloodline is part witch. So Manon ends up protecting her on that alone, and she ends up becoming Minon's servant, but also helped her eventually find out what they were doing to the witches, and it was pretty bad. It seems. And we also come back to Keltane, who basically wanted to destroy Selena in the first book because she wanted to marry the prince, and basically manipulated. She thought she manipulated Parrington, but it turns out he manipulated her, but um, she was still manipulating him. She had an interesting arc in this one, and she had a word key, which she at the end ended up giving to Elite and tell her to give it to Selena as a thanks to her favor, and asked her to keep her promise to punish them all, but also saying thank you for giving her that cloak that they refused to let her take, but she ended up taking a piece of, which I thought was kind of interesting, because at the end of somewhere in Crown of Midnight, Selena realized how she was, and how basically every time Duke Parrington came around, the guards would uh, turn a blind eye and allow him to do whatever he wanted with her, which I was just like, oh my god, that's so harsh. And I'm just like, and KO punished them, and everything. So, but Selena, when she went to see her, ended up giving her a cloak, because she was living under very like bad she was under very bad conditions in the dungeon, but she ended up giving her a cloak, and she in order for her to keep warm. And now she's trying to Keltane wants to kind of return the favor. Turns out Keltane also has magic, and it's called Shadowfire, and she burned the 1/3 of Morath at the end, and I was just like, yes, now that's a way to go. Burning everything that hurts you to the ground. That's just a way to go, I feel. So that was part of it. Manon and Aelin meet at some point when Aelin is rescuing Lysandra, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, because we met her in Assassin's Blade, and everything. And she um and they did fight, but also Aelin ended up saving Minon. It's kind of hard to go kind of interchangeably, but Aelin ended up saving Minon, and um so yeah, that happens. And Minon owes her a life debt and tells her Dorian is still there. Throughout this entire book, we see Aelin trying to kind of come to terms with some of her parts of her past in the Empire, like Arobin Hommel, whose help she needs to rescue Adian from prison when she finds out that he's still alive by Kale. Kale is back to being an asshole. And I'm so tired of Kale. But he's back to being an asshole, and I'm just like, oh, damn it, come on. And he's just annoying, and I just can't. He's completely being an asshole to Selena, and not paying attention to her. And she gave him back his ring. He also gave her back the Eye of Elena, and that's kind of how they broke things. But also, he doesn't want to tell her basically how to stop magic. He's just using his own prejudices against her again because he's mad about something. It's really annoying. He's basically being he's being an asshole. He's being an idiot, and they are not getting along. They're constantly arguing. But also, she has to deal now with Arobin, who demands a Volg soldier to be captured, and in all that stuff. But now she meets Lysandra, who they were rivals as children, trying to get Arobin's attention, because Arobin also invested in both their careers. Lysandra is courtesan, or where which means she's a sex worker, and um and not by choice really. She ended up just being there. She ended up there, and she's trying to pay her debt to the madam of the brothel. And one of the things she ends up doing is, she she just that's something that she does. And but Arobin also invested on that, and he also, there was a thing in, like, for example, her bidding party occurred in Assassin's Blade, and Arobin used the money that Selena paid in his debt for her debt to buy her virginity, which I was just like, oh my god, this is so hard to read. Another thing that came back from Assassin's Blade when it comes to Arobin is the fact that Selena mentions that in both times that he never identified as himself as father, lover, or brother. And he has some creepy ways to talk. Like, he is creepy. He would make a woman uncomfortable. I am a woman and I would feel uncomfortable by this man. And again, I'm a woman. I would feel horrified by this. Like, he is creepy. But they reunite because Evangeline is kind of working. I'm sorry, not Evangeline. Lysandra's kind of working like a mediator between Arobin and Aelin, but also she's also working to warn her about things, and all this stuff. And we meet Evangeline, who is Lysandra's ward, and Selena finds out that, Lysandra scarred Evangeline's face, but only to keep her from being part of the of the keep her from being a courtesan, because Evangeline was apparently sold by her mother to the brothel. And she ends and now Evangeline's debt is now part of, like, a part of Lysandra's debt. What she would have earned, all that debt is coming out to her, because she was almost done paying with her debt, but now she has to pay for Evangeline's debt too, which and that kind of prompts her and Aelin to talk and realize that, they were rivals, but they were trying to get Arobin's attention, and now they become friends, and now they're working against him, and they plan to kill him by the end of everything. And they do end up rescuing Adian, and all that Kale is focused on in this book is trying to get Dorian out, and save him. But the fact is that there may not be a way, and Selena tells him there may not be a way to do that, and she's like, I might, if I have to kill him, I will, because she wants to be, Aelin wants to be merciful. Sorry, I've been using Selena and Aelin interchangeably, but it's a thing. It's kind of interchangeable right now. And he, one of the characters we meet is Nesrin, and she ends up, there's a point where she was very close to killing Aelin, and Nesrin threatens to kill Adian if she kills Dorian. And by the end of the rescue mission, Kale and Aelin do argue about the fact that she was going to kill him, and Selena's like, yeah, she would have killed him because it would have been a mercy. And of course, Kale doesn't believe it, because Kale is Kale and can't believe anything. And he's annoying, honestly. He does end up coming around to Aelin's point of view when he realizes there's nothing left of his friend, but it just took way too long, and he just annoyed me. Rowan makes another appearance, and they're because it turns out Lorcan, one of Maeve's Bloodsworn, is looking for him, or looking for the word keys, and he ends up coming back to help her, and he is and him and Selena kind of start a bit of a romantic relationship, which is cute. I like it. I'm okay with it. I like that. I like Rowan and Selena as a couple. It's interesting. This is a good time to say there's something I really like about the Thorn of Glass series, and that is the fact that Selena went through several partners from Assassin's Blade all the way to Queen of Shadows, which I don't get to see much in other books. I don't get to see a lot of it. It's usually one romantic partner. But I actually really like the fact that Selena has gone from one partner to the other and kind of seeming to explore more of herself. Like the romance wasn't just one romance, and it wasn't just this one person. It wasn't fully one romantic interest. There were a couple of romantic interests, and they had an interesting relationship each. And I think it was a good thing that she that there was that thing that she took that Sarah J. Maas took this route instead of giving her this one romantic partner. So I liked it. I think that's something that's good because I don't see that personally in a lot of fantasy I read, where they go through a lot of different relationships. So I really like that this is something that was um in this book. I think that in this series, I think that is very good because it's not always realistic that a person stays with the same romantic partner. I like the whole there's only one romantic partner, but I also like this approach a lot too. Um, really, I love it. I just love it. By the end of A Queen of Shadows, magic does come back, and Dorian comes back too as king, but Kale also kind of loses his ability to move, and now he has to go to the southern continent in order to help him heal. And so and Aelin makes him the ambassador to Ireland, which I thought was interesting. Um, Also, Dorian's father turns out to have been being controlled by the Vogue, one of the Vogue. I think it's a prince as well, one of the Vogue in general. And it turns out that he and Parrington basically opened the this like the this like I guess I don't know how to explain it, but basically this thing where the Vogue were locked up in sarcophagus maybe, but basically they were locked up in this thing, and they ended up opening that as kids. Like Parrington wanted to show him, and they ended up opening the thing as kids, and basically the Vogue were let out that way. But it turns out that Dorian, Dorian's dad, is basically was trying to fight the Vogue and stop him from doing certain things, and it turns out that when he was conquering when Terrasin was conquered, he was actually going to Terrasin in order to have Aelin kind of kill him and kill the Vogue. And it turns out he just wanted it to be over, and I thought that was interesting because that made the king kind of an interesting villain by the end. And I thought I definitely enjoyed that one. That ending, even though Dorian ended up killing his own father, but I think it makes sense, and I can appreciate I can definitely appreciate that ending, and I think it was an interesting story. And it turns out he only was able to fight the Vogue long enough, it seems, to name his son. And I thought that was an interesting ending. I did like the ending. Everybody is kind of Aelin, Adian, Rowan, and Aelin are kind of all gone. Oh, and Lysandra and Evangeline are kind of now at the end in a trip to basically going to Terrasin. And what I also really like is we find out Lysandra is also a shifter, and I love it. She was fighting by the end too. She was actually planning to just stay with she was just planning to leave with Evangeline, but it turns out she's like, no, my friends did she got captured because she was a shifter, and she didn't think her friends would return, but they did, and she ended up fighting for them and sending Evangeline off to Nesrin's, I think, parents' house. Um, and that was an interesting thing. And she literally herself had said, you know, like she didn't remember what she looked like because her mom kicked her out of the house when she found out she was a shifter. She doesn't remember why she shifted, but it looks like she shifted in front of her and found out. And then she had to become whatever she did to kind of survive in the streets. But by the end, when magic was gone, she was stuck in the form she was in, and she had no idea what she would look like as a woman and what she looked like before she shifted, and had to shift a lot to keep herself from doing that. But when magic was gone, she was stuck in a specific form, and I thought that was interesting as well, because it didn't just affect, you know, it affected a bunch of magic wielders in different forms, but she was the one undiscovered until now, you know, until very recently. So in I thought that was an interesting story that she had. I like when side characters or minor characters have a story. Otherwise, it becomes kind of something like that. If they don't have a story, it becomes kind of very annoying, because when they don't have a story, it means that they just don't they kind of are just there to push the main character or characters, like push them toward the plot. But if they have a story, it becomes that you can become invested in these characters, and you can really like these characters, and it becomes something that I think is is amazing. You emotionally become invested in them. So that I liked the relationship rebuilding between Adian and Aelin. I thought that was awesome. And the romance, of course, between Rowan and Aiden, and I'm sorry, and Aelin, and also Minon's realization of everything, and everything she did to try to save the witches after realizing what happened with Astrid, and after everything. So I thought that was interesting. Not to mention, it kind of saved Dorian in a way. So I thought that was an interesting thing. A lot of things happened in Queen of Shadows, and I love every moment. So, yeah, let me know what you think of Queen of Shadows in the comments section. I genuinely love this. And check out links in the description. And what now? Sorry. And until next time, everybody, happy reading.
Voiceover unmuted.
Huh?
QuickTime Player. Movie recording. Window. Show captured device. Stop recording.